Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for February 18th, 2022. I am Benji Fisher, moderating and sharing my screen. And also present are Antonia, Beatriz Varela, Clayton, Kimberly Amaral, Marina, Ofer Schall, Ralph Kohler, Sally Wright Serene, Tiago, and Thomas Howell. Thank you all for coming. And let's see. Oh, I don't have up the issue for the meeting. I should be able to find that. So let's see. I guess the easiest way to navigate it is to open the issue for next week's meeting and then follow the link back. So I have a couple of issues that I've been looking at. And let's start with this one, which may take the whole meeting, we'll see. We typically discuss about 2 issues per meeting. This one's a little complicated. If you look at the issue number, you notice it is less than 100,000, and current issue numbers are in the 3 millions. So that indicates that this is a very old issue. For the sake of the recording, it is 85494. Use email verification when changing user email addresses. So that's the issue summary that I currently have on the screen that I'm sharing. And let's see, I've posted the link into the chat and also the UX Slack channel. And Antonia posted in the link for the issue, and Ralph posted in the link too. So we have both a link to the meeting issue and the issue I'm discussing. If you go to the link I posted, you can log in as user admin with password admin. This is the first time I've tried this ngrok with ddev. It seems to be working for me. I'm curious if it's working for other people as well. And then I'm also going to open a window if I can. I need a new terminal window. There we go. Oh no, what I need to do that on my desktop. Oh, actually, that's not going to work at all. Oh well, if I'm sharing from my laptop and not my desktop, then I'm actually going to have some trouble. But anyway, if I'm logged in as admin, I can go to configuration and account settings. And there is a new option. These are various emails in these vertical tabs that can be sent by the site when users register, when they are blocked, when they cancel their accounts. And there's a new one at the bottom, a new tab, account email changing. And since I just installed this site from the patched version of Drupal core that has the patch from the issue, these 2 emails are enabled by default. When you upgrade from an existing site, they will be disabled by default. And then let's see what happens when I let me open in a new tab, user, and you can, again, you can log into this site as user admin, password admin, and you can poke around and look at the screen yourself. But I'm going to add a user. Very secure password. I'm always amused at the message. Recommendations to make your password stronger. The last one is make it different from your username. And I'm going to take that risk, even though I'm sharing this through ngrok. I think I'm relatively safe. And I'm going to notify the user of the new account and create a new account. Now, the tricky part is that I'm split between two computers, and the new account email went to the one that I'm not sharing the screen. So what I'm going to do is oh, I'm already logged in here as the admin. So let me log out. And then when I use the one-time login link, I will set my password there. Actually, I won't set the password there. I don't have to set the password because it's already been set and I know what it is. So what I can't do is show you that screen where I've logged in. And I can't really show you the emails that have generated, but I'll find a way. So what I'm going to do is change my email address on the screen you can't see. And then what's happened is that two emails were generated. So what I can do is paste these into the UX channel thread. So if someone could copy that from the UX channel into the Zoom chat, that would help. So that's the email that gets sent to the old address. And here's the email that gets sent to the new address. Luckily, the line breaks don't get preserved when I copy and paste. So let me add some line breaks here. Enough. Ralph. Okay, so I promised to keep an eye on the chat, and I see some confirmations that people are able to get in. A recommendation that I use ddef launch-m, and yes, I've done that, but unfortunately that's on the computer that I'm not sharing my screen from. So I've tested this, and it works pretty well. Let me go back to the site where I am sharing my screen, and if I have a typical problem with Zoom that it's obscuring the window that I'm looking at. So my email address has been changed. Which actually is not what I expected. I thought I had to click on that confirmation link first. I don't suppose anyone else has used that link.
No.
So, so that seems like a little bit problematic. But let me go ahead now and actually click on the link.
I also thought the user would be set to blocked before the email is changed.
I don't think that's the way it is supposed to work. There's been a suggestion that that it work that way. But yeah, the user is currently active. So let me try changing email again. I actually made a typo. I didn't spell example correctly. Example.com as an E before the dot. Let me save that. There we go. So this time I used the link. I guess maybe I accidentally clicked on the link, which would explain why the email address had already gone through. So as you see, I now corrected the typo. I spelled example correctly. So that's the basic feature. So until now, when you register your own account, you're asked to confirm your email. But if you change your email address, you're not required to verify it. So that's what this issue is adding, this, this process of sending an email and asking you to confirm it before making the change. Any questions before we go on to the open questions or the questions that are already on the issue?
None from me.
Kind of surprised that this has been open for so long.
Oh, this is Drupal after all. And the funny thing is that that there's already contrib module that does this. And you would think that, you know, after a few iterations, the contrib module would have things about right, and then we would just bring it into core. But as you say, this issue has been open for a long time. Just how long? Let's where did the issue go?
I think 16 years, maybe. I think it was 2006.
Something like that. Oh, here's the issue already open. Just have to move my Zoom windows around to see it. Yeah, from 2006. So not quite 16 years since it's only February, but more than 15 years. Yeah, this issue has been around for a long, long time.
So the only thing that's really strange has nothing to do with the usability of this. So can we get into the usability issues? I have security issues with this that I've got with this group. I'm like, I'm wondering why this is our methodology. But hey, let's talk about the usability.
Yeah, if you look at the issue tags, you'll see that it needs a security review, as well as, I thought it had a needs usability review tag on it, but maybe not.
So why are
but
we talking about it?
No, it does need usability review. So there are a few things to consider. There's the admin experience, so that form that I worked on at the start, and then the emails that get sent, and the error messages when something goes wrong. But let's start with point 8 under remaining tasks in the issue summary. Should there be some indication that additional form fields are available once checked? And I think that's referring to the admin experience. So if I uncheck this, and again, this will be the default will be unchecked for existing sites. There's no indication that that things will appear. So this is the pattern known as progressive disclosure. We don't show the subject and body text fields until we've enabled the email. So I have an idea how to reply to that question, but let me hear others' opinion first.
One question.
Yeah.
If the checkbox is checked, if a screen reader user is navigating in that form, is there some sort of announce also from an accessibility standpoint? Because otherwise it's a form underneath the checkbox, so it's could be that it's basically unnoticed by the screen reader user the first time he or she is on the page.
I don't know the answer to that. Is there a way I can check?
I'm not sure what's the method is. I guess it's Drupal.announce or something like that.
So I could look in the JavaScript attached to it.
Yep.
I'm not sure how to do that. I would also say that's an accessibility question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rather than usability. And any other comments on this? Again, the question is it a problem that until you check it, you don't see those additional fields?
All my problems are security related. I think progressive disclosure makes sense in this situation because it's just unnecessary screen space. Because if you're not going to be sending the email, why should you care what the email would say?
Right. So my response to this is that we're following the pattern that's used for several other emails. For example, the account blocked email is disabled by default. And when you check the box, you get the text areas for the subject and the body. So whether it's a good idea or not, or whether it has accessibility problems or not, I would call that outside the scope of this issue. If there are problems, let's fix them, but let's fix them in a follow-up issue and not worry about it as part of this issue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, +1 on that.
Any else? So I think the next couple of parts of that are sort of similar. Should the suggestions exist prior to checking the box? Which I guess is, if I read it correctly, pretty much the same question. All right, so the next part of this is different. Should we make the request visible as pending to user and or admin until completion? So when I go and change my email address, whether I'm looking at it as an admin or whether I'm looking at my own account, let me go ahead and change my address again on the screen you can't see. Filling my current password and make it
Maybe
.net.
we can double check this time,
Yeah.
Not clicking the link yet and checking in the admin if the email is already changed without the link being clicked.
Yeah, so let me reload the page on the admin screen, and it still says example.com.
Okay, that's great.
And now, where you can't see it, I will look at the email that was captured by Mailhog, and I successfully changed the email. And when I reload this page, I expect to see example.net rather than example.com. So the question is,
Right.
between the time that I've changed my password and the time that I have clicked the verification link, should there be some sort of indication on the account screen that an address change is pending?
Well, doesn't that imply that we need some sort of state or at least some sort of flag on the user entity to display for admins and users themselves?
The information must be in there somewhere. Somewhere Drupal is storing the old and new email addresses. So I guess that's on the user entity, but I'm not entirely sure. But the system can't work unless you're saving both emails until the verification is made. So in other words, I think it's doable. Is it important to do?
I think it would be reasonable to keep the user informed that there's some sort of pending confirmation as a label, for example, on the right of the field. And that way, the user is able to see in case that process wasn't triggered by him or her, to get notified that way, also aside the email.
That's a good point. So there's an option on the admin screen to notify the new and old email addresses, but it's only an option. So the user might not be getting an email at the old address, so might not know that someone has requested a password change. So I think having an indication here would be a good idea. The other thing is, when things work well, I change my password, I get the email, I click the verification. It's only in that in-between stage for half a minute or so when things go well. When things go wrong, I get distracted, the email doesn't come, my computer crashes. When things don't go well, it would probably be useful to have an indication here. So I guess we agree that it's a good idea to have an indication. Is it important enough that we need to have that in the initial version of this feature, or can it be postponed to a follow-up issue?
I think it might be up to the security reviewers to make that decision, in my humble opinion. It would be nice to already have in the first approach, in the first version, but if it isn't security relevant, it could be postponed to another follow-up issue, in my humble opinion.
Anyone
I
else?
feel like whatever we decide now, or whatever we agree on now, it might just get, it might be irrelevant by the time that security review is done, because I can very well imagine that users might have to be set to blocked before they've confirmed their new emails, and that during that time they can't log into their account anyway, so they can't see any indication.
Is that mentioned here? So I guess that question is not mentioned here. I'm quite sure that I've seen it in the comments. There are a lot of comments on this issue. We're in the high 300s at this point, which is why this page takes so long to load.
I guess from my perspective, the need for the security review, because there's a lot of things that don't fit modern security paradigms.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to know if we're making good usability recommendations if this form or the behaviors were to change drastically. And I could be wrong, but it feels like it's a bad security pattern to not validate that someone there's very specific things that security tends to follow these days. I am not a security expert, but it might change how all of this behaves or is even worded, for instance.
Do you have something specific in mind? A specific change that you think will have to be made for security reasons?
So typically one of the most common attacks is for someone to gain access to a spoofed email address. And if they were able to come in and just change the address without it ever going to the original email address, that behavior means that your account would be vulnerable. It's just a process of validation. So it's just a pattern that I've seen in a ton of modern software. Like this way of doing things and making so many of these things very optional by default means an administrative account would be potentially easily violated, which then violates the entire site. Because there's no indication that this is any different for the administrator or for any high privilege accounts than it is for all accounts. This is universal. So just to me, behaviorally, it feels like this is something that was created in 2006, and there hasn't been a significant security review to say, hey, this is how things have to be today to meet government criteria or whatever the current security methodology is that is advisable. And again, I could be really wrong. I'm not an expert, but this doesn't match what I've experienced in a lot of other areas. Especially watching that behavior earlier where it was not even, it was changing the email address in the field prior to someone validating that it was even supposed to be changed. That behavior right off the bat seemed very wrong, but that's not this meeting. And I'm suggesting that maybe to address this, we need to make certain that it has gotten the blessing of security review.
Okay, well, as you saw, when I first loaded this page on a freshly installed site, both boxes were checked. So for new installations, that will be the default. And currently, we don't even have the option of notifying the old email on an email address change. Once this is upgraded, people will have the option to enable it on existing sites, and it will be the default on new sites. I think that's the best we can give, because we can't sort of create an unreviewed email that will suddenly start being sent by existing sites when they upgrade to 9.4 or 10.0 or 10.1, whenever it gets in.
That's unfortunate, because I do understand Thomas's point. I feel very bad about this first option, about this first notification being optional.
Well, I guess we can do what we can to let people know. So for example, we might suggest this as a highlight for whatever release it's part of, so that when people do upgrade, it's called out among the many changes in 9.4 or 10.1, whenever it is. Highlight this as a change and strongly encourage site administrators to enable the new options.
So this is a side issue that would address, I guess, this from a usability perspective. What about a new issue that basically puts in a warning when this is not enabled, so that ensures that every site, once this goes in, they're aware that it hasn't been set up as a default? And it can't be. I acknowledge that once this change goes in on existing sites, you don't want to have that behavior necessarily. There may be better ways of solving that, but again, I think they're outside the scope of usability to prescribe how to do that. I think from a usability perspective, it worries me for any site builder who doesn't understand that this won't be enabled by default. If for whatever reason, their experience isn't enough to me, even a intermediate Drupalist may not understand the distinction, especially if they're building test sites and the test site comes with that automatically enabled and it isn't there on any sites that they take over.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a usability concern. Discoverability is part of usability. So I think it makes sense to have something on the site status report saying, warning, you haven't enabled this option. Go over and configure it.
Okay.
I like that idea. We also been doing this for a while now for other cases, so that makes sense.
And in the chat, Ralph agrees with the idea of adding some of the status report. Good, that's a nice positive recommendation coming out. Go ahead.
How do we break down this issue? I mean, it's over 15 years old. There's a bunch of open stuff on it. Does it make sense to make this issue into a meta and then provide follow-up issues or related child issues so that we can focus on one thing at a time?
I don't want to break it up. I do want to identify some things that can be put off to follow-up issues. So that's why I asked. We all agree it's a good idea to have some indication on the account edit form, whether an address change is pending or not. So the question is, can that be postponed to a follow-up issue or not? That's why I asked that earlier. Can the status report thing be postponed to a follow-up issue? Maybe, maybe not. But the way to get this done is to have a few people agree that they're going to push it over the line. And I think we do have people willing to work on this issue. I'm certainly one of them, and I do have time to devote to it. So I believe that we can get this done within the next month or two.
Wow, that would be amazing.
That's perfect. Like, and honestly, with the warning, I think that helps to address my concerns. I always fear undiscovered things. Like I don't like hidden features.
Right, well, I'm old-fashioned, so I believe that undocumented feature is another word for a bug. Okay, good. We have a couple of positive recommendations. I like that. Let's have a look at the email addresses. They've been pasted into the Zoom chat and also in Slack. So the first one, this one goes to the old address. Benji, that's my username. Benji, a request to change your email address has been made at Drush site install. And Drush site install is the name of this site. Where, whatever. In order to complete the change, you will need to follow the instructions sent to your new email address within 1 day. If you did not intend to make this change, contact admin@example.com. That is the default value. The admin can change that. Is it a good default? Is there something else that should be added to it, or is there something that should be removed from it?
Okay. Something that's happened to me eons ago. So as a site builder, it's the type of silly mistake that I've made up once upon a time. If a site administrator, this is configured by default, but they haven't set up the site email address, or they've put in example.com, they've put in some phony address because they're not ready yet, they haven't set it up. And that had that happen where we didn't have an email for a site administrator or whatever set up yet. You could be sending out emails that are erroneously, like, that you're not aware are pointing to this tag. So it would be nice if, when this form is visible, if any of those attributes are not completable, that the administrator is notified in some way, like an error, or it says, hey, did you notice? I don't know if that's possible, but from a usability perspective, it could avoid a newly generated site sending out emails that have false site mail attributes.
I certainly agree, but I'm going to suggest that that's out of scope for this.
Okay. I
this
just want to
issue?
put it out there. It's
Well,
cool. if it's-
actually, though, so all of these emails have the same message here. I notice it does not mention the site email address, which is actually used here. So that should probably be changed. Or that should be added to it.
It's there, upper right-hand corner, first
For
line.
user mail.
Oh, site mail. Oh, you're right. Yes, it is missing.
But there is an issue to, let's see, this one, which is an even older issue, which I searched for it yesterday. I found it, someone had suggested this in one of the comments on the issue we're looking at, that this is issue 496380 to explain what the tokens mean. And it's basically pointing out that this help text up here is inadequate. So I would suggest that the problem with the site email address not being set, it is a problem, but it should be part of another issue, not this one.
Perfectly acceptable.
And as you said earlier, it is, a really great improvement that we will be sending out these notifications to the existing email address when it's changed. So how about the message that gets sent to the new email address? Benji, a request to change your email address has been made at Drush site install. You need to verify the change by clicking on the link below or copying and pasting it into your browser. And there's the link. This link can only be used once and it expires after 1 day. If not used, your email address at Drush site install will not change. I think some of that is copied from one of the existing emails about probably account activation. Yeah, clicking this link or copying and pasting it into your browser can only be used once, blah, 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 blah. So it's similar to the email that we've already got here.
So I have a tiny nit to pick here.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I don't like using the word 1 day. I would say something more explicit like expires within 24 or in 24 hours after this email was sent, something along those lines. Like, so it's minor, but I'm not a big fan of inexact information because a lot of people interpret 1 day in different ways.
So you suggest 24 hours?
It's something more specific. Yeah.
Okay. Antonia?
I think since the time those messages were suggested, the other emails have slightly changed. I think there's like a footer, well, not a footer, but it says like -- site name team on other emails. As far as I know, if maybe you switch to the welcome email account or anything else, there's like this thing. And I'm all for consistency. If this is in all other email texts from system emails and the user module, then we should also add it to the new email text.
Yeah, it is on most of these that get sent to non-admin users. There we go.
Oh.
Have to scroll down to see it.
Why are some of these scroll
Why
down?
are they? Yeah.
That is a good question. We don't have time to look into it. In fact, we're getting very close to the end of the hour.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good catch, Antonia. Thank you. We should definitely be consistent there. As long as we're talking with mysteries of this page. One thing I don't like is that there's no indication on the close tabs whether or not the email is enabled. Not all of them have that option. Right. Like this one is not optional. It will always send an email when a new user is created by the administrator. But certainly the one we're adding and several others can be enabled or not. And there should be an indication when the tab is closed. But again, that's not in scope for this issue. That's just another good thing to have. So we are getting close to the end of the hour, but I think we're also finished talking about this issue for now. Am I right? Any other comments you'd like to add?
Just one idea. I like the direction Thomas went into with be more explicit about the time with 24 hours, but would it be even possible to make it variable based on the time of sending, that the user who is receiving the email sees the date and the time, meaning on the 21st of March, the link will expire at 7 o'clock, and based on the time zone the user has set in the user account, for example. So it would be even more explicit and more definite. If something like that is possible at all, not sure.
That would be nice to have. I would suggest that as a follow-up issue. What, do you agree?
Yep.
I like that as well. But as another follow-up issue that would make this more usable, and maybe this is the contrib module, most sites don't do 24 hours anymore. I've seen anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, but from a security perspective, most of these activation links don't have very long periods of time. So my question would be, as a follow-up issue, is it appropriate to say that that is a configurable value for how long the links persist, or is that something for contrib space?
Since I've looked at it, I can actually answer that. It is configurable, although there is no user interface to configure it. So certainly changing the default value would be very easy. And providing an interface for it, well, the hard part would be, where do we put that setting? But it would be pretty easy to add a setting.
The setting and then a variable to go along with it, so that you could, in some way, shape, or form, echo, because otherwise you have to change all of these emails, et cetera, et cetera. But in any case, I just wanted to bring it up. I don't think that is a blocker to this getting out there. I think it's more about modernizing Drupal from a security standpoint. So.
Okay, and we are at the top of the hour, so let's end the meeting now. Thanks all for coming. And I do have another issue that I'd like to bring up next week, unless other people have other ideas. And I hope you can come back then too.
Thanks, Benji. Thanks
for the
everyone
great
else.
discussion. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.